One team might not even make it to the starting grid in Australia. Another team has an engine advantage that's scaring all the other teams. And the defending champions just admitted they're not the team everyone has to beat right now. Pre-season testing is finished. The order of who's strong is starting to show up. And today I'm going through every team's situation as we head into 2026. Who's looking good? Who's in trouble? And who might surprise everybody in Melbourne? Let's start with the defending champions. McLaren come into 2026 as the Constructors' Champions with probably the best pair of drivers on the grid. Oscar Piastri and the current drivers' champion Lando Norris are both staying with the team. But whether that's really the strongest pairing depends on which version of Lewis Hamilton shows up for Ferrari. Testing looked good for the Orange team. They did 422 laps at the first Bahrain test, tied for the most with Williams. Norris had the fastest time on day one, and the second test went mostly well even though Norris had to sit in the garage for Friday afternoon while the team fixed his car. By the last day, they had 395 laps, which was fourth most overall. Since they use Mercedes engines, McLaren should have a strong power unit. Before Bahrain, most people thought Mercedes had the best engine. Nothing in testing proved that wrong, but nothing proved they were way ahead either. Here's the cool part though. McLaren hasn't gotten the newest Mercedes engine yet. Only the Mercedes factory team used the updated engine in Bahrain. So McLaren still has more speed coming their way. Team boss Andrea Stella was really honest. He said this test showed that Ferrari and Mercedes look like the teams to beat. McLaren and Red Bull are probably about the same level. Ferrari and Mercedes are a step ahead. That came from looking at race simulation data, not just the quickest single laps. When teams put in full fuel and run a whole race distance, it's clearer who's really fast because there are fewer things messing up the picture. On Friday, Leclerc had the best race sim of the week, a bit quicker than Verstappen and Piastri from the day before. The big question for McLaren is where their engine really ranks. Mercedes was expected to be the favorite, but Ferrari and Red Bull might have caught up. Speaking of Mercedes, while McLaren is coming off a great season, Mercedes has something to prove. The ground effect cars were really tough for them. They never quite figured out how to get the most speed out of them. There were some hopeful moments mixed with really bad lows and embarrassing fights inside the team. Even with all those problems, they still finished third, second, fourth, and second in the Constructors' Championships. Other teams messing up helped them a lot. Testing looked promising. Mercedes got everyone's attention in Barcelona with lots of laps and no big problems. They did fewer laps in the first Bahrain test, but they set some of the quickest times. Kimi Antonelli ended with the fastest lap overall, a 1 minute and 33.669 seconds. There were some technical issues in the second test, including a stop on track for Antonelli because of a pneumatic problem. Even so, Mercedes did more laps than anyone in the second test with 432 laps. Maybe the most important thing is the car looked balanced and easy to drive, really stuck to the track in corners, which is so different from their recent struggles. George Russell has been really happy saying how the car matches the computer simulations perfectly. The real order among the top 4 teams won't be clear until qualifying in Melbourne. But if Mercedes have been holding back and they haven't run low fuel on soft tires yet, which they probably haven't, their true speed could be really strong. On the engine side, Mercedes found a way to go above the 16:1 compression ratio limit. In theory, that gives them more power than everyone else. But with the new catch-up rules for engines, we don't know how long that edge will last. And since the internal combustion engine only makes half the power under the new rules, the next team might actually have the advantage instead. Red Bull probably has the most to prove among the top teams. They ended the old rules looking amazing, but the 12 months before that were full of going backward and uncertainty. Changes in the team leadership caused most of it. With new bosses now, they need to show they can do what Christian Horner built. On top of that, Red Bull is making their first F1 engine with help from Ford. That should be a huge challenge. But here's a surprise. Their first power unit impressed everyone with how reliable it was. Red Bull did good lap numbers in Barcelona and kept that going in Bahrain. There were some problems with Isaac Hadjar's running slowed by technical issues in Test 1, but the team still got lots of miles. Test 2 had fewer issues. The lap counts were steady, 343 laps in Test 1 and 329 in Test 2. Verstappen was his usual careful self. He said in general, "It's been a very positive start to the year for us. Overall, I'm very happy with the car. In general, we don't have too many problems, so that's been okay." Of course, every team says their rivals are hiding their speed more than they are, but Red Bull's rivals pointed out something specific: energy deployment. George Russell said they're not just a small step ahead. You're talking about half a second to a full second in deployment over a lap. It's pretty scary to see that difference. And Red Bull have always made a very good car over the past 15 years, even when their engine wasn't great. So yeah, this test has been really eye-opening for a lot of us. How much of that is real? Rival said GPS data showed Red Bull's engine using electrical energy longer than anyone else. It could just be noise, but if it's true, that's a huge advantage. Either way, Red Bull should feel proud. Their first engine looks like it's performing at the top level. Even with the good results, team boss Laurent Mekies thinks they're still behind the top group. We'll learn more in Melbourne. Before I talk about the team that might have the biggest engine advantage, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe and like the video. I'm covering everything for the new season. How many years have we heard this will be Ferrari's year? Pretty much every year for the last 20 years. But something feels different this time. Ferrari started focusing on 2026 cars early in 2025. They began their Barcelona program in wet conditions and did a ton of laps before Bahrain. In Test 1, only McLaren and Williams did more laps. Test 2 was just as good with 324 laps, and the fastest lap of the whole test, Leclerc's 1 minute and 31.992 seconds. Reliability was strong except for a Hamilton stop right at the end of Test 1. But the most exciting thing was what the drivers said. Lewis Hamilton looked really happy to be in an F1 car for the first time since 2021. That's a huge change from the last 4 years. And there are signs Ferrari found something special with their engine. Ferrari engines can do super fast getaways. Their smaller turbocharger gets up to speed quicker than the others. Worries about slow starts made the FIA try a new launch procedure in testing. When they tested it, the Ferrari cars were unbeatable. Hamilton hit the power and it shot him forward like a rocket from the 5th row to leading into Turn 1, and it wasn't luck. Esteban Ocon in the Ferrari-powered Haas did a similar amazing start. The pattern was clear. Even better, while other cars need careful handling of a tricky start procedure, Ferrari-powered cars have simple, predictable launches. They found the perfect balance, and with less turbo lag, they get a strong punch coming out of corners too. Will that amazing starting speed be enough to win the championship? We'll find out soon. Williams was the surprise package of 2025. James Vowles' project finally paid off. Ignoring George Russell's podium that wasn't really a podium in 2021, Carlos Sainz got the team their first podiums since 2017. Then came the worst possible start to this season. Out of all 11 teams, Williams had the hardest beginning. They didn't do the Barcelona shakedown because of delays with the FW48 program. After a Silverstone shakedown on February 4th, they got to Bahrain and started playing catch-up right away, doing the joint highest mileage with McLaren. They did decent laps in Test 2 too. But here's the issue. Williams are missing performance. The car is thought to be 25 to 40 kilograms too heavy. That's like losing 0.75 to 1.2 seconds per lap. They can take weight off, though it costs money. More worrying is the lack of downforce, which is harder to fix. James Vowles spent 2 years saying the new rules were a chance to catch up. He talked a lot about switching to 2026 design early and giving up some 2025 results. So it's disappointing to see Williams starting from such a weak spot. Racing Bulls are a changed team for 2026. They have the new Red Bull powertrain and rookie Arvid Lindblad joining Liam Lawson. Even with the changes, testing went mostly well from Barcelona on. After a problem on day 1, Racing Bulls had a good week in Test 1. Test 2 was solid too with 407 laps, only behind Mercedes. Lindblad did the highest daily mileage of any driver with 165 laps on the last day. There are big questions about Lindblad, though. His junior career was good but not super standout. It feels like Red Bull had to promote him after just one F2 season because they didn't have other choices. Ideally, Tsunoda would have done well enough to stay, giving Lindblad another year to grow. There's nothing saying he'll be bad, but his resume doesn't match other top-team rookies. Unless the Red Bull engine is completely dominant, Racing Bulls are probably fighting for the top of the midfield, and they might not have the drivers to get the most points when it counts. When Williams missed Barcelona completely, everyone thought they'd have the worst start. Aston Martin said, "Hold my beer." They showed up late to Barcelona, proving that unlimited money doesn't fix things without hard work. Test 1 had the lowest lap count at 206. Test 2 was even worse with just 128 laps. Reliability problems ruined their program. But lap count doesn't tell the whole story. This team came into 2026 with huge hopes. Adrian Newey, the most talented designer of his time, top facilities, billionaire money. Instead, they had a nightmare. Newey's bold aero ideas might work someday, but not while basic gearbox and transmission problems stop them. Worryingly, Aston Martin had to limit their last day because Honda used up so many parts they ran short. Lance Stroll's words were harsh. "We need more power." Simple as that. "We're just lacking power and we need to improve the car too." So a mix of things. Fernando Alonso, feeling like it's happening again with another troubled Honda engine, said calmly, "There are many things we need to fix." If Aston Martin are even fast enough to avoid the 107% rule that could keep them off the grid, that would be a success. Haas came back for 2026 with promising Oliver Bearman and Esteban Ocon under pressure. Team boss Io Komatsu was honest last season. Ocon really underperformed. Testing went smoothly for the team. After good laps in Barcelona, Haas kept it going in Bahrain. They did 390 laps in Test 1, behind only McLaren, Williams, and Ferrari. Test 2 was even better with 404 laps. Strong reliability all the way. They said good things about their new Ferrari engine too. Haas has shown many times in their history that they can build competitive cars. Keeping them competitive is the hard part. If that Ferrari engine is strong enough, Haas could really surprise people in Australia. But more likely, they're fighting in the midfield with Alpine. Winning that midfield battle will be about not making mistakes like others. Aston Martin has clear problems. Williams is too heavy. Haas is quietly doing their work, and that should be enough to score points regularly. The team now called Audi arrives with a brand new engine, so it's really hard to judge them. In theory, a big company like Audi making their own power unit should lead to success. But good F1 teams take time to get strong, like fine wine needs time to age. Expectations for Audi's future should be high. For the next few seasons, those expectations need to be lower. Technical problems limited their Barcelona running, but they improved in Bahrain, especially on reliability. They did 353 laps in Test 1 and 357 in Test 2. Over those more than 700 laps, they didn't stand out, but they avoided big dramatic breakdowns. They're in a similar spot to Haas. They could do well just because other teams are struggling more. Nico Hülkenberg said, "I certainly feel we made some very good progress from Barcelona to now. Definitely some positive there, but it's still early days." If Audi got things right, seeing Hülkenberg on the podium again this season would make most fans happy. Alpine were really bad last season, finishing last by a big margin. But with the Renault engine gone, this is basically a new team. They switched focus to these rules very early and added a Mercedes engine, and that should help them. After building up laps in Barcelona, the team from Enstone had some issues in Test 1 with both Franco Colapinto and Pierre Gasly having stoppages. Test 2 went better with 359 laps. The biggest question is Colapinto. Alpine was honest last season. They weren't happy with his performance. If he disappoints again, he probably won't stay. What helps Franco is that the car looks much better. Alpine are in the same place as Haas. If they keep running without problems, they could top the midfield, but they're not likely to challenge the top teams. Scoring points with both cars would be a perfect start in Australia. Built from nothing in just over 12 months, F1's newest team did well. Just getting the car running through all 3 tests was a big win, especially since Williams missed Barcelona and Aston Martin could hardly do 10 laps without braking. Cadillac wasn't just running, they were putting up good mileage. The new team did 320 laps in the first test and 266 in the second. That's a solid start for Melbourne. As a brand new team, they know the truth. They expect to be at the back, but they're here for the long run. The goal is getting both cars to the finish, maybe taking a first point, and showing improvement all season. Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez both talked positively about the car's balance. Bottas said, "It's really not about where we start from, because I think the team has already done an incredible job to be here with a car running. So it's not about where we start from, but where we end up." Cadillac knows fighting for points is not possible at first. It's about building the base for their first F1 engine in a few years. So let's wrap this up. The top four looks like Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren. The exact order between them is still not clear, but they're clearly ahead of everyone else. Ferrari might have the advantage at race starts with their faster spinning turbo. Mercedes might have the raw power edge with their compression ratio trick, and Red Bull might have the deployment advantage that's scaring rivals. McLaren is just hoping the Mercedes engine turns out to have the biggest advantage. In the midfield, Haas and Alpine look best placed just by not having big problems. Audi is also quietly solid. Racing Bulls might have the engine advantage, but there are questions about the drivers. Williams is overweight and short on downforce, which isn't the fresh start James Vowles promised. And Aston Martin is in real trouble. The 107% rule is a real worry, and Honda's engine might not even last a full race. Cadillac just needs to finish races and build for the future. The truth is, even with the big rule changes, it would be a huge surprise to see anyone except Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, or McLaren on the podium in Melbourne. Who do you have high hopes for? And who do you think will disappoint? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel, check out f1reverse.com for some cool F1 inspired gear. And until next time, drive safe and bye.